wise, divine women that you've been called to be. Today, I have Matt Middendorp from Capital Point, Vision Capital. Vision Point Capital. Sorry about that, Matt.
What's
And
amazing
we're
is you
going to
got
talk about a
Middendorp right.
variety of things. Yeah, we're going to talk about a variety of
Yeah.
things, whatever is on his heart today, of course, but talking about employee stock ownership plans, legacy plans, all those things for women who are in this transitional wisdom stage of their life. Welcome to the show, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dana, for having me. I think we're going to have if you're a woman business owner today who's kind of thinking about what's next, maybe it's not today, maybe it's 3, 5 years from now or later, this is a good one. So stay tuned.
Excellent. I love it. I think it's important for us to educate ourselves what is out there,
Mhm.
how we can really not so much use the word capitalize, but how we can gain our wealth, how we can become legacy makers. And that's really a theme with Wise Divine Women. I want them to know wisdom moving forward that's going to not only help themselves, but help future generations to come as well. So,
Fantastic. Love it. Love it.
so my big thing was, what is an ESOP?
Yeah.
That's an employee stock ownership program. Is that correct?
Play stock ownership plan.
Plan.
So, which ironically, I put a poll out on YouTube once, and one of the options was everybody should own a piece, and that actually got the most votes. So,
Oh,
employee stock ownership plan is great. Uh, yeah, so essentially, what an ESOP is it's a business transition tool, but it's a different one, right? So we hear all the time about people when they're getting ready to sell a business or transition their business, they get the call from private equity or they get the call from a third party. They get that call at just the right time, so they decide that yeah, we should look at this because they're ready to make a change. But very rarely do those changes happen with deliberate intent. Meaning, so often business transitions are something that happen to people versus something that happens as part of a process where they know they're making a decision that makes the most sense for them.
right.
And I get calls all the time from people who sold their company, and 2 years later, they're starting the same company with the same people under a different name because the people they sold it to destroyed their baby, right? They ruined it.
Yeah.
So ESOP, employee stock ownership plans, are another alternative to private equity. They're another alternative to a third party sale, a strategic buyer, to re-leveraging, right? Bringing in additional investors. It's another way of looking at transitioning your business to your employees. But I want to be clear, when this happens, you're not going directly to your employees. In an ESOP transaction, a trust is set up. That trust is overseen by a trustee who represents the employees in the transaction. And that trust buys the company from the shareholders, or the shareholders sell the company to the trust, however you want to look at that. And you can sell all or part of the company to that trust. But there are some very distinct benefits to being employee owned, right? Now, I do want to be clear about one thing: that trustee does not take control of the company,
Right.
right? So, for everybody right now who is going, "Oh, I'm selling it to a trust and it's overseen by the trustee, and the trustee is going to run my company." No, that's actually one of the really cool things about ESOP is when you do this, the people that run the company on the day before the transaction are the same people that run it after the transaction, which isn't something you can say about any other kind of business transition, right?
Which is good because you want the heart of the business to continue, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. I know as somebody with my business, when I made the decision about what's next for mine, it was the single hardest decision I ever made. I lost a lot of sleep over that,
Hmm.
and it becomes a part of who we are, where our identities are tied to our business. And man, that's too important to just let it happen, right? So today is about process. Today is about um, how do you go through and make a deliberate choice there, and then how does ESOP, how does employee ownership fit into that?
I love that idea. I love how that sort of creative process empowers employees who you've spent a lifetime with. They're like your work family. right?
Yeah.
And so the benefits to the employees, how does that work?
Okay. So one thing I need to be clear on as well with this is the employees, even though it's an employee-owned company, don't have direct ownership. They are beneficiary owners. What does that mean? It means they don't get to make decisions about hiring and firing people. They don't get to make strategic decisions. They're not voting shareholders. They have shares that are assigned to them over time. Uh, Typically, in an ESOP transaction, those shares go out over, let's say, 30 years. It really depends on the company, but usually somewhere, let's just say 30 years, we'll have a million shares that'll get distributed to the company. 1/30th of those go every year to the employees. And then their allocation of how many of that, of what percentage that they get is calculated. So because it's a qualified retirement plan, they get those shares gain value, and then when they retire, when they well, dying, death, retirement, and disability are three automatic vesters, right? Just like with your 401k, those shares have a value and they get paid on that value. So I have a client right now, their transaction is closing at the end of the month. And we project that in 10 years, the average employee will have almost $900,000 that they would have never had. Right?
Hmm.
Publix, the grocery store chain, is the largest ESOP in the country, and you hear stories all the time from people there where they have cashiers that have worked there for 20 years and they're multimillionaires when they retire. And as the employees themselves, they aren't putting their own cash into that, right? That's a benefit that they receive for working there. They're contributing their time and talent and expertise to the success of the company at a higher level in ESOP companies, we found, than in non-ESOP companies. But yeah, if you want to change the lives of your employees and create wealth for them that they would have never had without being an ESOP, then it's a great option. If that is one of the things that motivates you uh, in this process. Legacy. What's your legacy with your employees? What's your legacy in your community?
I see that as a real win-win, right? So, one, the employees have a deeper sense of value to
Yeah.
their workplace, a
Mhm.
deeper sense of loyalty, I suppose, and retention as
Yeah.
well to their business. Also, that sort of everyone they everyone plays a part in keeping the business functioning well,
Mhm.
so that there is a profitability to it. Because if you can see down the road 20 years, which is hard working in a public's, uh, you know,
Right.
environment. But if you see that, there's a pride that's instilled. You have,
Mhm.
there is a light at the end of the tunnel with a retirement fund, which is phenomenal, right? That usually never happens anymore. And they can live their lives knowing that they have stability in that.
Yep.
I
Well,
think that's phenomenal.
let's put some data to that, if you don't mind. Let's put some
Mm,
numbers behind that. So ESOP employees are one of the big perks of ESOP is you're hiring and retaining better talent, right? The average ESOP employee stays at their company 4 times longer
yeah.
than a non-ESOP employee. Because you're hiring and retaining better talent, ESOP companies grow faster than non-ESOP companies, 2.4 to 2.6% faster. So think about the money you're saving if you're hiring and retaining better talent. If your average employee is staying 4 times longer, that is directly going to the bottom line because it's expensive to replace people, right? It's expensive if you're a business owner. So you're seeing more growth. In the year after an ESOP is formed, the typical productivity jump is 4 to 6%. 4 to 6% greater productivity the year after an ESOP is formed in most ESOP companies,
Mhm.
which leads directly to a greater return on your investment, right? So there is a direct correlation to successful companies growing faster, being more productive, hiring and retaining better talent, because they're an ESOP. And I can tell you, when I worked in banking, I had clients that were ESOPs and became ESOPs. And I'm a former banker. Please, nobody hang up. Stick with us. It's okay. I promise not to hurt anybody. And I saw that for real. I saw the promise of those numbers come to fruition in companies back in the earlier days of my banking career. It was a fantastic thing, and it made me a believer in it. So when I had an opportunity to do what I do now, which is help business owners make that transition, right away, I jumped on board because I've seen it work and I've seen it
Mhm.
really help people.
What size of business does this really work for? Like,
Mhm. Yep. No, that's fair. I mean, it's definitely uh, a couple of different things you need to be. First of all, you need to be an American company. It's
mhm,
an American law. Canada, the UK, they have their own rules, but um, this is what I do is under the American laws that established this in 1974. So need to be an American-based company. Need to have typically 15 to 20 employees minimum. If you have less than that, I would still love to talk to you, but it's one of those things where I'm gonna ask some different questions. Um, I can tell you that the average company that we work with has somewhere between 40 and 70 employees, which is where most businesses are, right? So that makes sense. You have to be profitable. I know that sounds crazy, right? But you have to be a company that somebody wants to buy. I get calls every week where people are like, "Oh, I tried to sell it, nobody wanted to buy it, so I'll just sell it to my employees." Doesn't work that way. You need to be a profitable company that is sellable and viable. And then the last thing I would say, because there is such a strong cultural component to ESOP, is you need to make sure that the sellers and the management are aligned on wanting this, on
right,
implementing it, because great ESOP cultures don't just happen, just like great company cultures don't happen. And if they don't want to communicate it, if they don't want to train and lead and grow their team through this, then gosh, if the sellers want it but the managers don't, it just doesn't make sense, right?
right. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's gotta be behind it, and there
Mhm.
has to be this sort of 10, 20, 30 year projection to it to make the plan work the best that it is. Like, what
Yes.
is everyone's lifespan within the business as employees? What is the lifespan of the management? And, you know, you would hope that these smaller businesses would be incorporating these types of legacy discussions
Mhm.
with the team, right?
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I actually worked for a company that before I started working for Vision Point, I worked for a company that made ESOPs just like I'm doing now. But we were also an ESOP. So we knew what they were. We knew how they worked. We knew the ins and outs and the compliance stuff that goes with it. Um, it's not that hard, but we still talked about it all the time
Right.
and how it was impacting us. Because let's be honest, for most businesses, the financial goals of the business are very different than the financial goals of the employees. Well, guess what? In an ESOP company, those two things line up and they're working together for the first time.
Mhm.
So you need to make sure that people understand and stay working together. They need to know how they impact the bottom line of the company in their role and how do they execute so they can help everybody be more successful. Is it waste? Is it loss? Is it shrink? Is it sales? Like, what is it that they do that helps the company be successful? And show them how they may have an impact, and people respond to that. They want to be a part of something, right? And they
Mhm.
want to know they're making a difference, and they want to see the results come back to them, not the owner getting in their third Corvette and going home.
Right, right, exactly, which just creates animosity,
Mhm.
and
It
poor
can.
morale, right? So that I think that's incredible how that all just sort of accumulates together, not only for the workplace and for, you know, that sort of joy inside there, because I think that's really imperative when it comes to
Yeah,
workplace environments.
agree.
And then they can also see the bottom line. They can see
Mhm.
their bottom line. They can see
Absolutely.
how their retirement's going to look and not be so worried about that. I mean, there is
Yeah.
a sense of worry and return and things like that. But when it comes to people wanting to commit themselves to a career, and whether it's just even as a teller or something, it can be anything at all,
Mhm.
but when we have that confidence in knowing what our retirement will look like, I think that whole stress, our health becomes better, our relationships become
Yeah.
better, our family, has a little more sensibility to it. And I think it's all just a win-win, right?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the beautiful parts about employee ownership is it's a win for the sellers.
Yeah.
It's a win for the company, and it's a win for the employees. It's, you know what I mean? So too often, so often we look at this as giving back to our employees. But the truth of it is they're not the only ones that come out on top in this scenario.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yep.
Do you find that a lot of companies are really sort of moving to this, um, platform or to this sort of style of, investment?
More and more.
Yeah.
And there are some very good reasons for it. One of the reasons is well, I'll tell you a story. I have a client right now. They are going through the process of becoming an ESOP, but they actually sold their company to private equity in 2017. And 2 years later, they had lost most of their leadership. They had lost most of their clients, and the sellers bought the company back for pennies on the dollar, by the way. They bought it back for the cost of AR. It was a beautiful thing. But in the meantime, though, they weren't sure they were going to be able to rebuild it because they had lost their key employees. They had lost their biggest clients. Through their hard work, they got it back. Right. They got those foremen back that they were missing. They got the clients back that had moved on to other providers. And they rebuilt the business bigger than ever, and honestly, almost quadrupled their return on in the 5 years since they bought it back. So, and when I say the return from what they sold it for originally, they sold it for almost 4 times more the second time, which is crazy. So I guess that's like one thing I should probably take away is if you're listening to this and thinking, "Hey, that's great, I can change my employees' lives, but does that mean I have to be Mother Teresa and sacrifice my own return?" The answer is absolutely not. Um, a wise divine woman knows that they took the risk,
Right.
right? That they built this, that they lost sleep when payroll was tight, that they were consumed by their business. It's impossible not to be if you have a business in the beginning. And they deserve to be fairly compensated. They deserve to get paid
Right.
when they sell it. You shouldn't we go head to head against private equity transactions all the time, and you can make just as much, if not more, selling to an ESOP. Yep.
I think that's brilliant. And I think it builds that sort of confidence in things that there is, there's a return for the hard work that people put into their passion projects,
Mhm.
right? Which I think is
Yeah.
so vital. And why even run a business if you can't be passionate about it? And if there's no return, makes no sense. So I think that's amazing. So do you as the company as well go in and assist those owners in making sure everything is up to par, everything's turning around and being
Oh,
profitable, how we can prepare our company for ESOP.
so one of the great parts about employee ownership is you don't have to say, yes, I want to be an ESOP. What you have to do is you have to say, I think I want to be an ESOP.
Gotcha.
Right. So, and my job, I tell people, is 75% education, even before and during the process. But because every business is different, I need to understand their goals, what they're trying to accomplish, because ESOP is not for everybody. And I'm sure we'll talk about who it's not for before we're done. Because if your goals as a seller don't line up, if the company doesn't line up with it, then it just doesn't make sense to do it. Right.
Right.
So we need to understand that, but there's also things you need to know about how it works, the process to become one. And you have 2 or 3 conversations with somebody like me before you even get to having to put any money into it. Right. But the first concrete step that you take is something called a feasibility study, which is simply a decision making tool. It's a
Right.
place where you can go to find out, based on your company's financials, what would the return to the sellers be? What's the impact on the company's cash flow if you sell to an ESOP? How does the company look after the transaction? And then project it out into a number of years after. And then what is the impact on the employees? So you get to see that too, based on those projections. What are their balances going to be if the company grows like you think it will? It's again designed to give you the data you need to make a real decision. And there are times, not often, where the seller looks at that and goes, yeah, I got some work to do. There's a reason why there's a minimal cost to it, because you
Right.
need to not, if you have to think about the cost to find out if it works or not, then it's probably not worth the money you're putting into it, right?
Right.
So, uh, but yeah,
So
that's that first step is to learn about it, and then if you've heard enough to like it, then you study it formally. Yeah.
right. right. But who is it not for?
Okay. Um, Thank you for asking. Thank you. Because it isn't for everybody, right? The goals have to
Right,
align. And I always tell people when we're working through the process, I want to understand them in four areas. Number one is price. How important is the price they're getting to them? Do they want a great top line price, or are they thinking more about the money they actually make from it, the actual return? Because those are two different things, right? Um, I want to understand how they want control to look after the transaction. Who do they want to run it? Do they care? Right?
right.
Some people want their exist themselves or their existing management to still be in control. Some people just don't care what happens, and that's fine. Nothing is wrong either way. I want to be clear about that. It's your company, you built it. There's nothing wrong with selling your company and walking away. But I need to know that, right? I want to understand their identity as a business owner and how the name on the door impacts them, how much of that is in their blood, right? And I want to know their legacy because there's a continuum from I want to be high fiving my employees the day I leave versus I'm going to leave in the dead of night and they're on their own, right?
Right.
And everything in between. Again, I want to stress none of those are wrong, but not all of them line up with employee ownership. If you want to wash your hands of your company and just be done, then ESOP's not the path,
Right.
right? If you don't care if you're able to look your employees in the eye on your last day, and it may be 3 to 5 years after you sell it in any case, then ESOP's not for you,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
If you only care about the top line number and not your overall return, ESOP may not be for you. That's a
Right.
different conversation, right? But some people only care about getting so many X multiples. The truth of it is the multiple doesn't mean you're going to make any money, but it sounds sexy.
Mhm.
Right? So we need to be able to break down what their actual goals are in those four categories and help them understand what they're trying to accomplish from that. Are they trying to exit? Are they trying to pull liquidity out of their business so they can go do other things? Are they trying to just diversify and take chips off the table?
Right.
Right? So we once we understand those things, we can help them decide if they should even entertain a study. Most of the time, if they're taking the time to look at it, they have concerns, right? I had a conversation yesterday with somebody who has a private equity offer in front of them, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't sit right. So we had a meeting to show them other options.
Yeah.
And it turns out that their goals really didn't align with what was in front of them. But again, in the beginning, we talked about you need to have a deliberate process to make a choice that's right for you and your business. And most people, when they transition their business either up or out, aren't doing it with deliberate intent. It just happens to them, which
Right.
means
Right.
you may not be in control of how you feel about it after that.
So, in one of the other podcasts that I was kind of when I was researching before we started today was talking about franchise. So, and the reason I think of that is because so many
Yeah.
women have spas, and when you're going and you're rolling and you're wanting to just expand, then becomes that franchise question or multiple locations,
Mhm.
and then it becomes a lot. But how does that come into play when you're talking about wellness spas and massage studios or other health boutiques and even or hospitality and tourism when women are a lot of times the owners or
Mhm.
creators of these sort of um, businesses?
Yeah. I have a client right now that's an interior design business. I've got a client right now that is actually or I'm sorry, not a client, somebody I'm talking to who is a yoga studio, right?
Yeah,
So here's a couple of takeaways from that. Number one, ESOP works. If
yeah,
it meets your goals, if it hits the criteria that we talk about, then yeah, absolutely ESOP works for retail establishments, for those service industries like you're talking about.
right.
Now, I'm like, ESOP can work. I don't want to
Yeah.
say it's always going to work, but it can work, right? It really depends on the individual company. Now, there are a couple of things to consider, though. Number one, um, if, if ESOP doesn't limit your ability to grow,
Right.
employee ownership is actually the only qualified retirement plan where you can borrow money, right? So if you are looking to invest, if you're buying other businesses, it doesn't limit you from doing that, from making investments in your company. So I want to be clear about that. But the other consideration I would want a woman-owned business to have is how much of your business, if you work with government contracts and things like that, comes from being woman-owned. Because if that's the case, you probably don't want to sell your whole company. You're probably going to be required to keep a majority. Some states recognize ESOP on a status like veteran-owned, women-owned, minority-owned, but a lot don't. So it really
Right.
does kind of depend state by state, and that's something you'd want to consider is for example, I had a client that actually did concrete for nuclear power plants, and they were woman owned, but they work almost exclusively with government entities because, well, private citizens don't own nuclear power plants.
Right.
So they had to retain majority ownership. And because of that, ESOP just wasn't really the right path for them.
Right. Right. Which is
So
unfortunate, but I get
it
it,
is, it was
when you
unfortunate. They
can't.
were disappointed,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they were of an age where they just didn't want to sell 49%. They wanted to transition out of the business. And um, the 3 to 5 year time span was fine, but it just didn't line up with their goals because of that's where their business came from.
I really like how you when you have a client in front of you, no matter, what situation they are or who they are or if they meet any sort of criteria, is that I really get the sense that you're very open and honest and frank with them, and you whether you end up working with them or not, you're giving them all the facts laid out. This is
Yeah.
this is it, right? So I
Um,
like that flexibility. You're not just this sell, sell, sell. It's like, no, let's step back and let's understand what your desires are, what your employee desires are, and if this works for you or not. So
Thank you. That actually means a lot to hear.
yeah.
I really do appreciate that because we try and do the right thing. My job is to create the most successful ESOPs in the country. And that means that the seller wins, that the company is better off, and that the employees' lives are changed. And I can't just pick one and uh, make that the thing.
Exactly,
Mhm.
right? There's ethic
Yep.
you wanna be ethical yourself, and it is that sort of and people will remember that, and that's sort of where that's you have to have that sort of reputation in this industry of that caring, compassionate person, or you'll just be labeled a banker anyway, so
I've been
but
running
you know
away
what I
from it for years. Come on.
yeah, but
No.
you know what I mean? Like, there's people out there that don't meet those criterias, and that's where investments or brokerage or
Mhm.
corporations and all those different things
Yeah.
get such a bad reputation from.
Yep. No, you got to do the right thing. And there's a reason that 1 out of every 10 ESOPs in the country comes through us.
Mhm.
It's because we try and do the right thing, and we don't make promises. Well, okay, so I've told you that 75% of my job is education. Let
Yeah,
me put it to you this way. Do you know what the other 25% is?
just customer
Managing
relation.
managing expectations, making
Ah,
sure I can
yeah,
do the things that I promise.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
That's
which is
it.
hard.
That's my job in a nutshell. If you're wondering what I do all day, is I educate and I manage expectations.
Right, right, right. People will be coming in with these big, grandiose retirement objectives, and you're like, "No, that's not gonna
Mhm.
work for you, but this might," right? So,
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah,
And
and
I've
it's
had it
hard.
where people come to me thinking their company's a $40 million company, and I just glance at the financials and it's a $7 million company. And
Yeah.
I can't even pretend that I can
No,
help them.
I think
And it's a
honesty is the
little,
best way.
yep, that's my good Midwestern sensibility, I guess. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So, how do people find you?
Yeah. Um, how do people find me? So there's a
Yeah,
couple of different ways to do that. I'm gonna make one of them very easy. Go to our website,
yeah,
esopready.com. ESOP ready.com. A lot of good information there. There is an assessment you can take to get a 10,000-foot view to see if ESOP might be a fit for your company. But then the other part of that is if you want to talk, if you're just curious about this and you want to learn a little bit more, because guess what? We haven't even talked about the tax benefits to the sellers. We haven't even talked about the fact that companies, when they're employee owned, may not have to pay taxes anymore at all. Right? Right? We didn't even get into any of that. You can schedule directly with me as well. You have access to my calendar. So go there, learn, take the assessment if you'd like, schedule an appointment with me directly. Uh, Even if you aren't sure, book it and let's set 30 minutes aside and you can learn more about it. And the only goal of that meeting is decide if you want to talk again. That's it.
As soon as I said that, I was like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure there is a big thing I forgot to ask," right? Like, what is the biggest benefit, the biggest
Well,
thing to the person coming into this? And you said that the taxes.
do we want a mic drop on the way
Yeah,
out?
go, like,
Okay.
go. Just
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is that? What did you mean?
Should we warn people they should probably pull over if they're driving and listening to this? Or okay. Well, so what's really cool is as a seller, let's look at taxes from 2 points of view very quickly. If you're a seller, there's an opportunity where you could potentially defer taxes and not have to pay capital gains, right? So just we're gonna tease it at that. From a company standpoint, this is the mic drop. We're gonna leave with this. If you're 100% employee owned and you're an S corporation, you no longer pay state or federal, or in 36 or 46 out of 50 states, federal taxes. Oh my gosh. You no longer pay federal taxes, or in 46 out of 50 states, state taxes. That mic drop did not go well. So think about that for a minute. Think about all the money you're paying in as an S corp. Those K1s that now go to the seller with a distribution to pay the tax bill goes to the ESOP, and the ESOP doesn't have to pay
That's
because it's a
incredible.
qualified retirement plan
Right.
that is proportional. I mentioned you don't have to sell all of your company to the trust. So if you sell, let's say, 30% of the company, you get 30% of that benefit. But what do you think that does to your bottom line when that tax bill is no longer there?
Mhm. It
It's
goes
huge. It's a
back and
huge, yeah.
yeah,
But it's
huge.
one of the things that I need to make sure, because I get people that come to me all the time saying, okay, I want my taxes gone. It's got to line up. It's got to meet your goals.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Very important, very important. So
yeah,
all that will be in the notes, like, go to the website,
yeah.
look at things from, that 10,000-foot view, and
Yep.
really
ESOPready.com. Yeah,
yeah, esopready.com. So, what is so 2 things I wanna ask here.
please.
What is sort of the wisdom in things that you've learned when you're speaking to your clients or potential clients, like this wisdom that you hold truth to?
My own personal wisdom from speaking to clients is I'm going to give you two things. Number one, there's no one way to do anything. And I have been told a lot of times in my career, especially in my banking career, that this is the way things have to be done. And more often than not, there is a better way that nobody bothered to find. It was maybe unconventional, maybe had a little bit of risk to it. But the truth of it is don't be afraid to do things differently than the way everybody tells you to.
Beautiful.
Which then
Beautiful.
the other thing I would add to that is don't let anybody ever tell you that a little bit of business isn't luck or timing. And that luck is something you create
Yeah.
when
I love
you
it.
go through your day to day. You earn that luck, and it's okay to be lucky, and it's okay to appreciate it.
Right. What is a wisdom or a truth or something you hold for yourself?
I'm gonna go. Well, you know, you already kind of hit on it,
Yeah.
and it's that I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing for people, right? So my wisdom or truth that I try to live by is I work with the clients I want to work with, not just the ones I can get, right? So I surround myself with people like you, Dana, that have an impact, that are trying to do the right thing, that want to make a difference. And I know I promise people I can get them the return that they're looking for. I know I promise people that their company is going to be better off. But my favorite clients are the ones that have their name on the local high school football scoreboard, right? They
Yeah.
sponsor everything in town, and they know that they want their profits of the company to stay in the community with the people that helped them get there, not going to some office in New York,
Right. Those
right?
those are big
And
things.
those are the people I want to work with, and those are the people that get me up. I do a lot of speaking in small communities
Mhm.
all over the country that maybe have two or three main employers, and if one of those employers leave, the town's dead.
Devastated. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
So
big impact. Yeah.
yeah,
I
I want to have an
completely
impact.
understand. Exactly. I love that.
Thank you.
I already had that sense about you, very community oriented. You're very impact in this small sort of um, small town, big impact, change lives, change family lives. So I already sensed that about you anyway. So I love it.
Well, thank you.
I can't thank you enough. It was so much. Honestly, I had no idea what ESOP was, so I think it was fantastic for me to learn, even
Thank you.
from a Canadian point of view. It's like, "Oh, okay, so who in Canada am I gonna talk to about this?" Because that is something that we wanna consider as being business owners, and then how can that happen as
Mhm.
well for anyone in any country, and that opens that conversation of, "Okay, that was fantastic. Now who do I talk to in my own area?" So
Yeah, well, and again, there is a version of this in Canada. I
yeah,
gotta admit, I don't know the details of it
yeah.
from a tax or any kind of point of view, but, I would encourage you if you're thinking about it, if you're in Canada, look into it based on where you're at.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for taking the time to be part of this podcast. I know you have a busy schedule. I thank you again.
Well, thank you, Dana. I really appreciate being allowed to come on and share some wisdom.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone, for being part of the Wise Divine Women podcast. I hope that something stirred in you today to reach out and understand legacy and retirement and what you can do moving forward to be more profitable and stress free. No, it's hard to say if you'll be stress free or not, but thank you so much for joining us.